When I go out to shoot film, I really just want to focus on getting cool moments, whether it's people, whether it's places, different compositions, leading lines, whatever that it is. I want to just focus on that. And I don't want to have to be focusing on changing my settings all the time. And so that's what this video is about, turning this all manual camera essentially into a point and shoot. For reference, this is a Canon AE-1, super popular camera, essentially found everywhere these days, and a lot of us end up using this as our first film camera. This video is inspired from a previous video that I did while walking around shooting street photography, and I talk about things like zone focusing and how I find exposure. So let's just go ahead and get into that. When you shoot film, you pick film and it has a designated ISO to it, and that's the ISO that you're likely going to use. The shutter speed is kind of dictated by the motion that you want in a shot. So I tend to like to walk pretty fast.
Cool in here. Yeah.
And I like to not break my stride often while I'm taking photos. So I'll be mid walk and snapping photos. If I'm really lower than 1/125th of a second on my shutter, I'm gonna see some motion blur. And in this particular instance, I don't want that. So I shoot for 1/250th of a second or faster, meaning 1/500th, 1/1000th is the top shutter speed that my camera shoots at. From there, I'll take a meter reading for the highlights and for the shadows. And I will use the shadow meter reading as my exposure for that particular lighting scenario. So if I'm outside and I never go indoors, I'm just gonna use that 1 meter reading. Now, you're gonna see me check that often to make sure that it's not changing significantly. So sometimes clouds come and go in front of the sun when it was full sun out, and it changes significantly enough to where you might need to change that. But really, in most cases, it won't. As far as aperture, I'm aiming for f8. There's a specific reason for that. f8 or higher means that I'm gonna have quite a bit of things in focus. My depth of field is going to be really great. And on top of that, at f8, I can shoot anything from 5 feet to infinity and that all be in focus. I will just set that focus zone on my lens and I'll walk around and I will gauge whether or not I'm within 5 feet or whether or not I'm 5 feet or greater. And so if I'm within 5 feet, there's a good chance it's gonna be out of focus. But effectively now I've set my exposure, my shutter, my aperture, the ISO set by the film, and I've set my focus down to 5 feet. I know that it's going to be in focus. And so I can walk around and shoot pretty much anything and everything and just focus on moments and things that interest me, whether it's a person, whether it's a moment, whether it's a bunch of layers in a scene that interest me, and just focus on seeing those things and pulling it up to my eye, or often, like you've seen me do, is keeping it at my hip or at my chest and shooting that way. So some quick tips for this method. ISO 400 film is going to be your friend. Typically ISO like 100 film in midday, you're gonna get good exposures, but you may not be able to get that f8 aperture for shadow meter readings, which is why in the previous POV video that I did walking around with street photography, I pushed my Portra 160 to Portra 320 essentially. I pushed it a stop. That way I could get the aperture that I was looking for, f8, around that area. I've even shot ISO 800 film, especially from the time frame of like a couple hours before sunset, leading into sunset, and then you can still shoot after sunset. A lot of this is dependent on having a light meter in your camera that works. If you don't have a light meter in your camera that does work, you can either use a digital camera, bring a second digital camera with you and take a meter reading of your highlights and your shadows and then apply that to your film camera. Or you can just download an app on your phone. I don't have a specific app that I use, but I'll go ahead and put some up in the video right now just to showcase that there are some free apps that you can get on the App Store, and just download one of those and use that. That's gonna do it for me, guys. I hope this helps get you out shooting some film. Film has such a great quality to it, and I absolutely love film. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them down in the comments. My name is David J. Orozco, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.